I found that really interesting, and it did change the way I saw symbolism, especially with, like, vampires in particular. And how, like, vampires being exploitative, and in books, vampires aren't always vampires. Like, some people are exploitative, and they're acting like a vampire or serving as the vampire in the story, even though they're not literally vampires. But they're still, like, taking away from somebody else while drawing strength to themselves. They're acting as a vampire.
And even reading things, sorry, you brought in the vampiric, but even reading Bram Stoker's
Giggity, 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 goo!
20 nights in the ice is a long time when there's hostels on the hill. It's not about what you wear, it's all about where you are. I wish I wasn't so dang sweet, so dang sweet, so dang sweet. I wish I wasn't so dang sweet. You are like cinnamon. I wish I wasn't so dang sweet, so dang sweet, so dang sweet. I wish I wasn't so dang sweet. You are like cinnamon.
Hi, Rob. Hi.
Morning, Lindsay. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm pretty darn good. We get to talk about Star Wars again.
Well, I told you when we started this that was a dangerous topic.
For both of us, apparently.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? It's good to geek out and have fun, and Star Wars is really a great story of cultural moments, and that's part of what I love about it, is how it tells a story of our moments.
Mm-hmm. So I'm still watching I'm watching Rebels still, and I just watched the episode between, spoiler alert, Obi-Wan and Maul. It was a really good scene, and I was a little shocked, actually, that he dispatched him so quickly.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it would be, like, I've been reading a lot about Maul, and he's ferocious. He's a ferocious fighter. So, and that fight was like a piece of cake for Obi-Wan, which was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they set it up to be this epic thing, and Obi-Wan's like, doop, 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 you're dead.
And if you watch that fight, Obi-Wan starts with his original stance, he goes to a second stance, and then he goes to something that's a little more aggressive as a stance. And there's a whole breakdown of Obi-Wan's fighting stances before the lightsabers ever connect.
Okay.
And there's a greater conversation in, well, wait a minute, what is Obi-Wan doing? Because he did, like, the original stance he used in Phantom Menace. He used a second stance from the Clone Wars when he fought Maul again.
Yeah.
And then he uses this third stance, and all of it is kind of this mind game, or at least this is the argument, this mind game that Obi-Wan is playing, and that's why the battle went so quickly, where Maul doesn't even know which form he's fighting with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is just a master Jedi and a master with the lightsaber.
I don't know if I buy that. Not sure.
See, I like it because to me that's moving into, we need to maybe talk about this. Okay. How do you feel, if we're gonna, I guess, talk about Obi-Wan, how do you feel about Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy, so 1, 2, and 3, and then Obi-Wan when you meet him for the first time in episode 4? Does it feel like that's the same Obi-Wan?
No, it doesn't. I don't think so at all. But we also don't know anything about him. He just seems so chill and laid back, and like he's actually been a hermit. Like he's actually been a hermit. Not just, this is my cover, but he's like really, really a hermit. That's sort of my impression. You?
Okay. So I actually love the continuity that is Obi-Wan Phantom Menace to Obi-Wan Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
I think that was the original actor.
Yep.
And Ewan McGregor. I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. I think that was the perfect find. I think he has made that character and enriched that character incredibly.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem that I have struggled with, okay, is when you see Obi-Wan fight. When you see him fight in Phantom Menace, in Episode 2, The Clone Wars, and when you see him fight in Revenge of the Sith, the battles are only escalating.
Yeah.
They're getting more intense. The lightsaber duels are incredible.
Yep.
But then when you see him fight in Episode 4, It's like they're taking a nap.
Well, right. And as a film watcher, it's because this is the first time they've ever had a lightsaber battle ever. And so it looks really classical, and it looks like they're using regular swords. And also, like, Alec Guinness really didn't want to be doing that. It looks like he's not committing.
Alec Guinness actually struggled with being in Star Wars in A New Hope.
Yeah.
Because he was a classically trained actor, and this whole newfangled sci-fi thing that Lucas was doing on a shoestring budget and putting forward as a sci-fi morality play, he struggled with it. I mean, he still brought his A game, because Alec Guinness was a classy guy, and when you I've never talked with any of the actors, but when you read the interviews from the actors, they'll say that, where he encouraged them. He brought an element of class to the effort, and in creating the character of Obi-Wan really helped set a foundation for the success of Star Wars as a whole. But anyway.
Yeah.
I want to show you something, okay? And it's a video, so we can't exactly show everyone else, but I think we can talk about our reactions. And the video I'm going to show you is the Darth Vader Obi-Wan fight, Reimagined. We'll put the link in the description. And I think, okay, if Lucasfilms was ever to find this podcast and listen to us, my thought would be release a new, only one, but new version of Star Wars A New Hope, and include something like this in it.
Okay.
So, I'm going to share my screen, and we can react to this.
Sure. Yes.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
It's too big to be a space station.
Very bad feeling about
Compass tractor beam that's pulling us in.
Essentially, presence I've not felt since.
He says he's found the main controls to the power beam that's holding the ship here. I want to go
Your
with you.
destiny lies along a different path. Force will be with you always.
Obi-Wan is here. I must face him alone.
Our long-awaited meeting has come at last.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Now you will die.
Wow.
And that's a fan-made thing. But since I've seen that, that's how I imagine that battle had to go. Is something like that. Yeah.
Everything about that scene.
Because it embodies who you think Obi-Wan is. A little bit further. Not a little bit further, but fully. As Alex Guinness, connecting it back into Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. Connecting it into what I have to imagine they're going to do with the upcoming Obi-Wan series. Which I'm just excited for.
Me too. Me too. So, okay, firstly, let's just pause and say, I think we make movies so much better now. I mean, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Well, okay, well, let's just say I like the movement and the way they frame shots and the way they set up those shots. The drama, the heaviness to the shots, as opposed to just using the camera as sort of like a stationary sort of viewpoint. It's like the camera becomes this dynamic thing, and I appreciate that so much because it added so much to that scene.
But yes, we have evolved and we make movies better. We do. But there is something to the practical effects, and I will always fight for this. There is something to the practical effect that was incorporated in the original trilogy. The building of spaceships and the blowing up of spaceships to make and create a space battle, instead of doing it all CGI'd.
Yeah, totally.
Now, they've gotten better with blending practical effects and digital effect. Perfect.
And like the camera stuff, like just the camera stuff is, I think, so much more creative and so interesting. You said you tried to make a connection between the way Obi-Wan fought in Phantom Menace compared to the way he fought in Rebels. Are you trying to say that the reason he's so laid back in Rebels in that fight, quote fight, is because he's sort of connecting more to the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan and all like laid back and like chill about the fact that he's fighting? Why do you think he did it like that?
Okay, so the Obi-Wan that we see in the fight against Maul in Rebels, okay, he is going through the different stances that he has used in the movies. And it's building and transitioning the character. That's what that scene is. It's just building and transitioning the character. Because the next time, in the material that's out there, the next time you see Obi-Wan is on the Death Star. And so Obi-Wan at this point, we don't know what happens to him at the end of episode 3 to Rebels. We don't know what happens. So there's a huge chunk of storytelling that's not there, but he's gone from the Jedi he was to this old, wizened, hardened, I got this. Have you ever seen someone who, I mean, they have decades of experience in their field, and there are these moments where, okay, everything is collapsing, you know, the house is on fire, and this old, wizened guy with years of experience walks in and it's like, oh, I got this, pushes one button, and the whole thing's set. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Obi-Wan we get in A New Hope. Not the struggling to make sense of things, not the hurt and broken Obi-Wan who just fought Anakin. It's just the wizened old guy. And that's the transition that they're showing in Rebels. That's my argument for it.
He's come to terms with everything. He's come to terms with the demons and...
Right. You know, Maul reappearing in his life because... Okay, so Maul's the one who killed his master. You know, there's some trauma to that. But then Maul reappears in his life in Clone Wars. And when that happens, it throws Obi-Wan off.
Is that when he kills Maul? Or when he thinks he kills Maul in the second one? In Clone Wars?
He thinks he kills Maul in Phantom Menace. And then in Clone Wars, when they reintroduce Maul, is when he... Right. So he's now wrestling with the fact that, I thought I killed him. This dude is evil. You know, we got to deal with this. And they never quite are able to deal with it. And, alright, spoilers. Maul rises to power, takes power over Mandalore. There's a whole story arc there. And he kills the Duchess Satine of Mandalore. Part of the story arc of that is that you find out that the Duchess Satine is kind of a romantic interest for Obi-Wan. Who, and there's this moment where he's like, well, if you had just said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order.
Wow.
And it's Maul who kills the Duchess. Now, I think that'll play out in the Mandalorian a little bit more, because you get, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the character now. She's the character played by Katie Sackhoff. You know who I'm talking about? You ever watch Battlestar Galactica? Oh, we gotta fix that. Okay. I'm entirely blanking. But it's the Duchess's sister, Katie Sackhoff's character. So when season 2, when you meet the other Mandalorians, the redhead, that's actually the Duchess's sister. And them going after the Darksaber was something that Maul had for a period of time. So you have this arc of Maul is a continual reappearance in Obi-Wan's life. He's the one who killed his master. He's the one that killed the woman that he loved, even as a Jedi, where it was... He still cared deeply for Satine, just as a Jedi. And I think the cumulative point then is just, you have the transition of, enough is enough, I got this. Maul has been a part of my story forever. Which is even why you get that weird end with Rebels and Obi-Wan and Maul, where, you know, it's almost like he's comforting him as he dies. And
yeah, he did. He like cradled his head in his hands and stuff, and
yeah, and I think that's just kind of the end arc of what Maul has been for Obi-Wan. I think that's the end transition of, you've built the character, and now Obi-Wan is right at the cusp of where we meet him in A New Hope, and he's got to be this wizened old man, not just this in crisis Jedi.
Yeah, he has to be the pillar for everybody else.
Right, and I think that's what they have built, and that's why that battle feels weird, because everyone wants to see Obi-Wan still developing to that. And I think that's why the Obi-Wan series is going to be huge and important, because again, it's adding a chunk of that development that we're missing. We haven't seen Obi-Wan for years, and suddenly he's this gray, wizened old Jedi fighting against an ancient nemesis of his. So we seem to open with like a nice little diversion into character builds and stories of Rebels, but again, we actually have some intention with what we wanted to talk about today. Yeah, and that was continuing, which actually I guess that does work with Obi-Wan, because it's talking about the character development and the philosophies that fall into how the characters are built, the very drastic symbolisms that are put in to help subconsciously or consciously build the story arc for those characters. And you really brought up one at the end that you loved the back and forth with, of Kylo Ren.
Yeah, his helmet and things like that, like we were talking about.
Well, his helmet, his story arc, I mean, all of it. So, I mean, there's an interesting element that they did add into episode 9. And that's kind of the legacy element, where you have Palpatine, or Darth Sidious, who is, I am all the Sith, and you have Rey, who is, I am all the Jedi. And so there's an interesting legacy element that they're adding into the stories, this cumulative of voices.
Mm-hmm.
And that plays out interestingly for Kylo, Ben Solo, because how he is and who he is in all of those stories. And I find it fascinating because who he is that one who brings balance to the Force. They seem to always introduce that idea that there's one who brings balance to the Force.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? This idea of balance of light and dark.
It's a weird concept in reality.
Okay. How
because
so?
if somebody, I guess, if somebody was all good or imbalanced in the sense that they were like more light side than dark side or something, why would that be a problem? You know? Unless you're talking about like too much mercy or too much justice is not good or something like that. But maybe you just, it's better to have a balance in yourself of, you can't be too much one. You can't cling to strong ideas or strong emotions or strong feelings to the exclusion of all others and not suffer some kind of break, you know?
Yeah, no. So we have talked about this a little bit because Star Wars continues to play with this And the most direct is in the elements of the Force, of, you have Jedi and you have Sith, the good, the bad. But we talked about last week where you have Saul Guerrero, who is fighting for the good guys, but he's fighting for the good guys in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like he's gone through some trauma, and because of the trauma, he's kind of becoming this person who might not be that much different than the, quote, bad guys. Which is what Ezra kind of says to him in Rebels. He says, well, you're just like them. If you do this, if you kill this alien, this defenseless alien, you're no better than the Empire.
You got the Genosis.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
That is one of my favorites, just again because it fills in a gap with a piece of story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's this balance that they keep playing with, and the characters of a Skywalker as the one who brings balance is a huge overarching theme because it's a savior complex that they're portraying in the movies. Kylo Ren, and they do it a little bit weird because you have Rey who plays a part in it as well. So both of them have this dualistic savior complex that plays out in that final battle.
Mm-hmm.
But then it could be argued that it's Kylo Ren who takes that final role because
he gets all Jesus-y.
Yeah, and in that kiss, that final moment, he brings Rey back, sacrificing his own life.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, too late, but, So, I mean, there's that element, because you see that in the original trilogy, you see the foundations of this in the prequel trilogy, and there are these, light and dark elements they keep messing with, and it's, if I remember correctly, and I'll probably mispronounce it, it's Taoism?
Yeah.
Chinese philosophy of balance with light and dark, internal balance.
Mm-hmm.
That Star Wars pulled this theme from, but they're pulling from other religious elements as well to create this broader story arc. And Kylo Ren's development is in that vein. I mean, you see it playing out, light and dark, light and dark, light and dark.
Yeah, that's his battle.
Right, and my favorite moment of, I think it would be fair to say, the favorite moment I have of that sequel trilogy is in The Force Awakens, so Episode 7, where they're on Starkiller Base, and you have Kylo and Han Solo standing on the bridge.
Yes.
And they very, very directly, there's no subtlety to this. Kylo and Han are having a conversation, and Han is trying to bring some form of redemption to his son.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing that, you see the battle of light and dark playing out, and then the physical light of the star cuts out. And the scene, it goes from a little spark of light to darkness.
Does it? I can't believe I didn't notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice that?
I guess I didn't really notice that.
See, I was sitting in the theater, and I'm going, okay, there's this little bit of light. As long as there's a little bit of light, we're good. And then the light goes away. They cut to Finn and Rey, and you see the light go out. They cut to Kylo, and there's this streak of light just across his eyes or face, if I remember it correctly. And the light just goes out. And as soon as the light goes out, the music changes, the scene changes, and then a moment later, you hear the lightsaber ignite. To me, it wasn't subtle. It was very overt, very... The light is extinguished. The hope has died for Kylo. In that moment. Now, it didn't fully die.
That's what he's intending. He's hoping that this is what's going to seal the deal for him and put him in a good standing with his superior, right?
Snoke.
So his Snoke, yeah.
Right, and they build that, and I would argue that's kind of the main build they're doing in The Force Awakens, where they're bringing in other characters who will play greater parts in the later movies, but in Force Awakens, what they're building to is that moment with Kylo Ren. Because in that moment, you now have Anakin Skywalker walking into the Chamber of Younglings, and you know what's about to happen. You don't want it to happen, but you know what's about to happen.
And so you're saying that's what seals his fate as Darth Vader, essentially, is killing the younglings. Or makes it so he can't go back. You can't go back after that.
Yeah, his fate is Vader
And the fact
sealed.
that he's on a bridge, that means something too. He's on a bridge. He's burning his bridges. That's pretty symbolic.
And transitions. Because he's going from one to another.
Yeah, I love this game.
See, now, I will say this. This is one area where I'm actually thankful for the youth pastor I had growing up. Because one of the things he encouraged is never watch a movie and just let it be a story. Look for the things in those movies, in the story, that are telling, that are revealing of the deeper aspects of storytelling that the directors want to put in there. Not just like the neat little Easter eggs that tie everything together, but how they play with light and dark. Look at how they play with water. Water is hugely important in movies, because there's an element of storytelling in baptism. Mm-hmm. And you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Where does Kylo Ren find redemption?
In the rain.
That
scene where okay, hold on a second. Wait a minute. This is when I think it starts. When he and Rey are fighting in the rain outside, and that's the scene where Rey stabs him and then brings him back again. I think that is I think that's where it starts for him, because his mother, like, does the thing where she, like, sort of talks to him across, like, with force talking, you know, and that's kind of what makes him get stabbed also, is because he was a little distracted and Rey stabs him, and I think that's when things start to really happen. So rain, it's a symbol of baptism. It's also a symbol of destruction, which you could argue that it's cleansing, destruction, baptism. It's kind of this complicated thing.
It wasn't rain.
What do you think it was?
Well, it was waves.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm being technical, but yes, it was giant waves on, I can't remember the planet name, but on the dead hulk of the second Death Star. Yes, because there was water everywhere. It's splashing everywhere. Everybody's getting soaked, and there's a redemption in the idea of baptism. The old has died. You have been cleansed, and through water, we symbolize this. We wash clean what was, and come out new. And that whole transition happened right there, with water splashing everywhere. As he and Rey are fighting, you have the cumulative sacrifice of Leia, of Han, because it's Han who comes back. And great scene, once again, with Han, who, you know, Kylo, now Ben, turns around and there's Han, and they have this father-son moment that should have happened on that bridge. That redemptive moment that Han was trying to build, but Han was also broken because where's Leia? Han's still broken with Leia. And, you know, you have this cumulative sacrifice now of the parents to save their son.
Oh, you have goosebumps. That's so good.
This is why I love doing, like, philosophy and diving into elements of Star Wars, because they hide these things in plain sight, sometimes intentional, and I would say that it's probably also unintentional, but there are storytelling elements that are always there, where oh my goodness, I can't remember the movie. Truman Show, there it is. And this was what I was taught on, where in the Truman Show, there's this scene, and everything escalates to this scene where Truman is now on a boat, and the show's kind of trying to kill him, and it looks like he's dead, and the storm kicks up, and there's rain, and he's laying there splayed with his arms open, and, you know, again, transitional state, water, sacrifice. coming out of that into new life. And Truman Show does it very, very directly, because in that moment you're like, oh, Truman's dead, and then everything calms down and he comes to life, and it's stuff like that, looking for that in movies, because that's what you find. Where episode 7, you have the last of that light, the embracing fully of darkness for Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then you have episode 9, that fight on the Death Star, on the remnants of the Death Star, and this new life, this baptism, this reemergence. And it's powerful storytelling. When taken in whole, looking at everything in whole, it's powerful because it's speaking to redemption. And it brings that question of, what is our state of redemption?
Mm.
Now, I will always speak to that from a Christian perspective, but just from a world's perspective, that is a question I think that is fair to always wrestle with. It's tied up in, what is the value that I bring or have? Do I have value? And am I defined by my past mistakes? So there's always value in telling a story that has redemptive elements, because it wrestles with that deeper question of, can we, as people, as individuals, be redeemed? All right.
Interesting.
Where are you at?
I'm not sure exactly. That's good, though. That's really good. That's a really good point. I like that.
Sorry, I kind of, I guess, sermonized there for a bit. It's a fair thing to say, because, I love using movies to teach, to reinforce points. I love using stories to teach and reinforce points, because we as people make really good stories.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think I said this at the beginning here, that's part of my love of Star Wars, because we make really good stories. And Star Wars is kind of this mass collection of, anyone can walk into this. Anyone can find themselves in this. There's a interview with Mark Hamill going around, where someone asked him if Luke Skywalker is gay. Have you heard or seen any of this?
No.
In the movies, you never see any kind of romantic interest with Luke.
You do.
Not quite. Kind of, but not quite.
That's not a goodbye kiss he gives Leia.
Leia gives it to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see? So there's some argument and there's some discussion on that, but Mark Hamill was quoted in this interview as saying, if that's what you need him to be, that's what he can be. Because it allows people to find themselves in the story. It allows them to find themselves in this arc of redemption and question. And that's why I appreciate storytelling, because it's where we can find ourselves, what we can learn out of, what we can speak to in our own personal struggles or in creating story. And there's power to that. There's a lot of significant power in being able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have written short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And when you write a short story, how much of you is poured into that story? A question, a wrestling, a struggle, a success.
Yeah, a pretty big chunk. I think that's what makes stories so universal, or these good stories so universal, is because when you tell a story, you're taking something that's true, and you're sort of dressing it up, putting it in outer space, and giving it Leku, and and now it's this different, those Twi'lek, isn't it Leku?
Oh,
the Twi'lek head things, Leku. You're making it, you're talking about love, you're talking about hurts between father and son, you're talking about being insecure, or not knowing who you are, or being confused because your grandfather was Darth Vader, but your aunt and uncle and dad are all superheroes, but you don't feel like you're a superhero. You have these dark things in you, so who do you really identify with? Like, big stuff, that's huge things, and everybody can identify with something like that, you know? And that's why imagery like the baptism stuff and light and dark, we see that because it's sort of, I don't know how exactly, if it's our mythology or if this has just been happening since stories have been written, is we're drawing from a deep well of common symbolism and identity and theme.
Well, I mean, think about stories that you were made to read in high school. You know, the classic literature stuff, or ones that you've read as an adult.
Yep.
How many of them have very similar themes told in different ways?
Yeah, like, let's start with Greek mythology. Greek mythology,
oh my gosh.
And then even taking like Bible stories just as literature. Greek mythology, Bible as literature, right there, you've got the groundwork for, I mean, tons of literature, tons of film have drawn out of those things. And then, like, obviously, Norse mythology too. There's a lot of themes that are drawn out of there, and it's really cool. Like, this is what makes us all human, are these old stories, these old myths that have been being told for thousands of years. It's almost spooky.
You say spooky, and this is where I would push back. But how much of that is understanding the human complex?
Yeah.
How much of that is trying to make a peace with who I am and what this world is? Seeking to find redemptive things, seeking to find understanding, seeking to find where I fit.
Right, yeah, totally.
And, I mean, just in that idea and complex alone, if you watch a movie with that in mind, pick a movie that you have enjoyed that's non-Star Wars. You're going to veer off from Star Wars for a minute.
Born Identity.
Ooh. Oh, come on. That's a little bit too easy. All right?
I know where you're going. I already know what you're going to say, and I didn't put any thought into that answer.
All right, so pick a different one. Pick one that is, like, not incredibly easy. Because I have a challenge and homework for you, I guess. But go ahead.
This is hard off the top of my head. Hold on. Okay, Annihilation. Have you seen that?
I don't think I have.
Don't watch it if you're depressed, because it's a wicked existential weird movie. It's called cosmological horror.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, that's with Oscar Isaacs and
Natalie Portman. Hey, that's weird. Star Wars connection, but that's probably why I thought of it, because Star Wars.
Yes, I did see that a while ago.
Super weird. That's probably one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. But in the books were a lot better.
Well, actually, the homework is for you.
Oh.
Watch it and look for, watch it and look for, with intention, the symbolism and subtext of story that they are weaving into it.
Yeah. I probably don't even have to watch it to do that now that I think about it. Do you remember The Lighthouse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there. That's where you start and end with The Lighthouse.
But The Lighthouse is in two different states when you start with it and end with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a place of transition, isn't it?
Yeah. You're good at this game, man.
And is there water?
Now you're just bragging.
I'm not
now
bragging.
You're showing off.
I'm not
No, I'm just teasing
It's
you.
this. When you do watch a movie, any movie with an eye towards critical understanding of the elements of story, it's like you've gone from a kid's story to this whole wealth of other storytelling.
I thought I was good at watching movies. Like, I've never considered myself too brain dead when I'm watching a movie. I enjoy film. But you would be really fun to watch a movie with. Fun or annoying, one or the other. I can't really decide. Maybe the second viewing with you.
Second viewings are better with me.
Yeah.
Kind of. My wife hates it. Melinda really does hate it when I've seen a movie before we watch it. She especially hates it when I say, oh, we'll watch it together. And I'm like, okay, play. We'll watch it together. I'm just going to watch it that first time. Because I will pick things up and we'll be sitting there and the movie's going and the storytelling elements are all there. And I'm like, oh, watch really carefully. Right here. Did you see that? That little change, that little blip on the storytelling. She's like, shut up. I'm trying to watch the movie.
Yeah.
And so my wife is very patient and gracious with me, but she hates watching movies with me sometimes. But it is a whole nother level of how you watch a story and what you understand that you are consuming in any story interaction. And it's not just stories. It's not just movies. Sorry. It's stories in general. I mean, think about how books are weaving that same redemptive arc. They have to paint a picture. So in setting, in character development, or in how they move the story, there are always these elements. Always these points of transition, points of question, points of change and challenge that are woven into the story that the author is using as the means and vehicle to get from point A to point B. But sometimes they're so subtle we miss them.
Right. Yep.
I mean,
I agree.
Let's talk Romeo and Juliet and the subtlety of the poison that is used. The drastic edge of the knife that is used right there at the end. And how they connect back into the family feud. The subtle poison of your parents turning you against another. The drastic element of the sword edge that is the openness of the fight. That just brief, but yeah, I mean, you have those storytelling elements that are woven, and Star Wars does that really well, because you have them there, but you don't always notice them.
Yeah.
Sorry, have I broken you?
No. That's really interesting. I think I've forgotten a lot of that stuff, or I just sort of gotten lazy, maybe, because there's this book I read in college called How to Read Literature Like a Professor, and it was really, really good. And each chapter talks about a different thing that appears in books, that it's never just about that thing. You know, like, there's a chapter about eating, and how if an author is describing a meal, it's really tedious to describe eating. So there's a reason the author is describing the meal. What is he trying to convey? Is it communion and that mystical, spiritual coming together, or is it sort of ironic and like cannibalistic and weird stuff like that? And so I found that really interesting, and it did change the way I saw symbolism, especially with like vampires in particular. Like vampires being exploitative, and in books vampires aren't always vampires. Like, some people are exploitative and they're acting like a vampire or serving as the vampire in the story, even though they're not literally vampires, but they're still like taking away from somebody else while drawing strength to themselves. They're acting as a vampire.
And even reading things, sorry, you brought in the vampiric, but even reading Bram Stoker's
Stoker.
I think I mispronounced it. Yeah, thank you.
Stoker.
Even reading Dracula, that is like uncomfortably sexualized.
It is. And isn't sex the ultimate exploitation?
Exactly. And I mean, Dracula, the idea of the vampiric, I mean, there are even elements of, you know, where you gain your strength from. There are elements of that exploitive, like you said, and then the sexualization that fits into all of this. There are a couple different weird levels in Dracula, but that's part of what has made Dracula a classic. It's part of what has made the character of Dracula this bad guy that's almost always recognizable and deeply disturbing because it's hitting on elements that are very personal, very intimate, and very much disturbing.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yep.
I say this with all love and grace in my heart, but yeah, maybe the fair assessment of yourself that you offered was you've gotten a little lazy with the storytelling engagement elements.
Yeah, yes, I think so. But in my defense.
Well, yeah. But that first year, you and I were in that program together.
Yeah.
I know that there were people who hated it when you and I would talk about movies or books that we've read.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're walking into it, again, with that surface level engagement. It's a good story. It has some things that we really enjoy. And then you and I are sitting there going into the philosophy of things of it.
Yeah.
And it takes it to this whole new place. And Melinda has complained about moments like that in the past, where it's how you and I could engage with a story and see 5 or 6 levels into it.
Yeah.
And ruin everything else, where it's, okay, you have the good surface level story, but now with these deeper elements, you're sitting there going,
yeah,
I really hate that character.
Yeah.
I loved them like 5 minutes ago, but now that you've unwrapped everything about that, I hate them. They need to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still kind of having this argument with one of my students. Have you watched any of the Marvel movies?
I've watched a bunch of them, yeah. Yeah, I've watched a lot of them.
Who's the bad guy?
The bad guy?
The bad guy. In phase 1 through 4, who is the bad guy?
Oh, well, I don't know it that well, though. Like, I've watched Iron Man 1 and 2 and 3, and I've watched Captain Marvel, which I liked, and Ant-Man, and, there's lots of different bad guys, so I feel like you're not really talking about the literal villain. What exactly
I'm talking about the literal villain. The one who is there in almost every movie. Almost. But has a presence somehow in every movie. And always affects things negatively.
Let me guess. Is it Nick Fury?
No.
I don't know. Tell me. Expose
Tony Stark.
this. Oh, yes, we have
Iron
had this
Man.
Discussion. Yeah.
Iron Man is the bad guy.
The unintentional bad guy or legit the bad guy?
Unintentional bad guy. He always makes it worse.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just going 5 or 6 levels deeper into what is the philosophy of a story.
Yeah. So Melinda still talks about us talking about movies and being annoyed?
She hasn't for a while, but...
That's funny. I want to know what specific movie we were talking about that annoyed her so much.
I don't know. It was probably something that came out recently in that time. I mean, that was 16 years ago.
Holy crap, was it? Jeez.
Yeah, I think so. Math is hard. I can't do subtraction. That was about 16 years ago. But I mean, and there were others who they did not like when you and I would go deep and philosophize on stories because...
Just let it be a movie. Just enjoy it.
I can't watch a movie and just let it be a movie. I can't. Yeah. Because there are elements of storytelling that they want to say that they don't want to just leave lying on the floor.
It's kind of like the way we watch movies. And, okay, listen, if I had more sleep and more time, I'd probably be on the top of my game. But that's not the case, so chill. But...
Yes, in all fairness, you're a mother.
When we watch movies at the top of our game, it's kind of like other people see the whole composite, like everything together at once. They see the whole thing together. Whereas I think you and I are good at, we see it in composite, but we know how to, like, take everything apart, like in Minority Report, when everything's, like, when he's got his gloves and he's, like, taking bits apart from the scene and pulling things away, and you're like, here's this dimension of the scene, and here's this dimension, and look at the lighting, and look at the writing, like, wow, the writing is saying something here, or the different nuances. I think we just pull it apart and see it in a multi-dimensional way. which makes it more fun, I think.
So there's one movie, I just watched it this week, and I'm still trying, it was a head game for me. Like, I need to watch it again. And I think I might need to actually have a drink and watch this one. Because...
Oh, what?
Tenet.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Christopher Nolan, no wonder.
And I know. Yeah, Christopher Nolan, I mean, he does mess with your head. I watched it. Melinda didn't watch it with me. And I was talking to her about it, and I said, for me, it was like trying to read Hebrew and English at the same time. Because Hebrew goes right to left, and English goes left to right. And I kept getting crosswired, because that's what it felt like, where I'm going, which direction am I going with this movie? Which then made me really enjoy it, because it's like, okay, unpack this.
Is it doing that on purpose? Is it trying to keep you off your balance on purpose? You know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's even Inception, going back to, how many years ago was that? That was 6 or 7? But it's that element of, which way is this story going? And Inception's a little more up-down, linear. Yeah. Whereas, again, how I felt Tenet was, it's going left, right, or right, left. Actually, there is something to that, because there was a verticality to Inception, now that I'm thinking about it, and a horizontalness, and you're going 2 different directions on all of it. Going down, going...
Interesting. Oh, boy. Now I gotta watch it and find out.
See, even... And again, this is part of the reason I do love storytelling, because even now, sitting with it years later, and sitting with the idea of Inception, it's, oh wait, there's a whole new level to that I missed when I watched that. Look at that, I gotta go rewatch it. And I have to rewatch Tenet again, because it is bothering me, because there's more to this story. I'm missing something. And now that I have the story, I can go in a little bit deeper with a second watching. I can pick out some of the more subtle.
Yeah. And I think the second watching is when you should do that. I think the first watching, you should just try to relax those instincts a little bit to take in the whole thing a little bit. Well, some things are just going to come to you, but the second watching, you're going to notice things you didn't notice the first time.
Yes.
And you can take the time to not pay attention to what's right in front of you and sort of pay attention to what's in the background, pay attention a little more to the writing, or notice things you didn't notice before. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry.
All right. And now to put a pretty bow on it, tie it all back together, and relate it to Star Wars. This is the beauty of the media and the stories that fill the Star Wars galaxy. Because they're tying things in, and there's an argument of, they keep messing canon items up, or they keep trying to retcon things in some of the extended stuff that just doesn't exactly work. But they're telling stories. They're taking new levels and new depths that they've already woven into it and left you with a question mark. But now they want to provide a little more story on that. They want to provide a little more symbolism or direct connection or understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And the Force is it's an entry level into the mysticism and depth of storytelling.
Yep.
So.
Cool.
Having gone through all of that, where are we at? Is there anything we need to wrap up with Star Wars? Any other points of conversation?
There is so much to talk about. I'm reading The Phantom Menace right now.
Ooh.
And reading it again, I've already read it, and I've seen the movie a couple times in the past. I haven't recently. But it just reads so much more like a tragedy now, setting up Anakin and how traumatized that kid is already right out of the gate because of them taking him away from his mom at 9. Anyway, my point is, there's Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker is one of the most interesting things to me in the Star Wars universe. And all the mistakes that happened along the way and how easily preventable they might have been if maybe he was dealing with somebody besides the Jedi Council, and or if Obi-Wan maybe had been a little more assertive and said, no, Qui-Gon, you can't take him home with you. He's not your pet. He's a boy. He's 9. He needs his mother. Or we need to figure out how to take Shmi with us. Like, I just think I could talk about that for a long time, because over and over and over again, they mess up. And I'm really excited to read some of the books between in the Clone Wars too, read the books between Phantom Menace and Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. I want to read those in between. I want to know what happens to Anakin in between there, and how does he cope with that anger. And it's no wonder. As a mother, I don't blame him at all for, that's not the truth exactly, but it's not unexpected that he gets messed up.
So we're going to talk Vader next week.
Let's talk about Vader next week, yeah.
All right. I'm going to finish by showing you a picture. I'm not going to say, let's not say what this picture is.
Okay.
But I'll stick this up on screen. Well, we'll see, yeah. So can you see that?
Yes.
What's that look like?
Aurebesh. Looks like Aurebesh. Are you proud of me for knowing that?
I am. Okay. And what's Aurebesh?
It is the basic alphabet. The Aura, I think Aura is the first letter in the alphabet, and Besh is the last letter in the alphabet. So the Aurebesh is sort of like alphabet. Of the basic language. Of basic. Right?
Of?
Basic. Isn't it called basic?
Yes, but of what? Is it Klingon?
No. I don't know. Is it? I don't know what you're...
Okay, it's from Star Wars. That's what I was trying to get you to say.
Well, yes, I knew that. We're talking about Star Wars. That's assumed.
Well, you knew that, but you know, people can't see this right now.
Okay, okay, right. You're right. Sorry. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry.
No,
yes,
that's okay.
Star Wars.
Okay, so it's the basic alphabet of Star Wars that also looks very Hebrew.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is off of Darth Vader's little, like, breastplate thing that he wears in Return of the Jedi.
Okay. What's it say?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, well, can you send me the picture then? Because I can probably figure it out.
Nope.
Please send me the picture.
Nope. I'm not going to tell you because it will be a perfect lead-in for next week.
Okay.
And there is some debate on this.
You know, I could just Google it.
Yeah, you could. But there is some debate on what it says, if it's actually in Hebrew or if it's in Arabic. And
right.
Does it have meaning, or is it just a little throwaway that they put in the movie to give a little more?
I've been thinking about this because I am nerdy enough that I'm thinking about getting a tattoo in Arabic. And so I was looking at the alphabet and things like that and watching a movie about the language. And they were saying that in the original trilogy, they just put gobbledygook up there, like they just designed the alphabet arbitrarily without assigning meaning to things yet. They just like bloop, 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 bloop. So it's possible that it means nothing. It's possible that it's just gobbledygook.
It is, and we'll have more discussion on that. But someone translated it from Hebrew. And there's potentially some very interesting meaning to that.
Huh.
And here's where I sit with it. I guess I'll give this preface. Where that lettering doesn't appear until Return of the Jedi. It's not in A New Hope. It's not in The Empire Strikes Back. It appears in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about then. There's a lot to say about that. If it's Hebrew, / Jewish. And it's on his clothes. It's writing on his clothes. That is symbolic right there. That's a symbolic...
On his breastplate.
Religious thing. Interesting.
On his breastplate.
What is that called? Hold on. It begins with an E or something. It's that Hebrew thing that the priests had.
Ephod.
Like the stones. The ephod, yeah. The stones and the wording.
Yep.
Cool.
So, again, levels upon levels upon levels of depth and meaning and intention in little things to big things. And there's some debate if this was truly intentional. Arbesh, the alphabet of Star Wars, has some connections to the Hebrew alphabet because they did borrow some of the letters from it and flipped them upside down and moved them around and things like that. So if this was originally Hebrew or if this is Arbesh and them developing that in Return of the Jedi, there are those who want to debate this, but there's a really cool meaning that is there. We'll talk about that beginning next week because I think that will help us then go from Return of the Jedi Vader all the way back to Phantom Menace Vader.
Okay. All right. I'm excited.
I am too. A couple closing things for everyone. Thank you for listening. We went a little bit over than what I thought we would today. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to go ahead and talk about the book that we are reading, which is Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. And dive into that, dive into the storytelling of that. And we'll see how deep and crazy we go with that one. You know what you and I should read at some point? Not like as the book, but we should read Alice in Wonderland.
No.
Why?
Because I don't like it. It just seems so nonsensical and bizarre and weird.
Oh my gosh. Think about reading it with a critical eye towards a lot of what we've talked about. And, diving into that.
I suppose. If you would like to, we can do that. But also, I just had an idea too. If we're gonna do like a book club every once in a while and read a book together, I think we should also do a movie thing as well. And our homework could be to watch a movie, dissect the heck out of it, and come back and compare notes.
Lindsay, why the hell would you say hell on a podcast? I mean, what the hell is wrong with... No. Actually, I was talking to Melinda about this last night because I wanted her opinion. I want to do an episode about curse words.
We might have to change the rating on that one.
We would probably have to most definitely change the rating on that one. But I want to do an episode on curse words.
The history of swear words. That's so fun.
Not just the history of, but like, what value does a curse word actually have?
Can we please? Because I have information to share.
I'm sure I think we're going to have to do... Oh, not much, sorry.
Did you just flip me off like in reverse?
I did not. I was actually cracking my finger. Although, quick, brief, funny story aside, I'm not flicking you off, but yesterday, I put a splinter under my fingernail accidentally when putting firewood onto the fire pit.
Yeah.
And that was before Mel came home, so I was like, I got a boo-boo. I'm such a mature adult. Which, by the way, that really flippin' hurts.
Yes. So, okay, I'm writing down swears and movie episodes, periodic movie episodes with the book episodes.
And I'm going to toss this out there, because you and I have each picked a book now. Mm-hmm. How dangerous do you want to be?
Oh, you mean like asking people's opinions?
Well, letting our audience, our listeners, pick the next book and pick the first movie that you and I dissect.
But what if they pick something really lame? I was just teasing.
There's nothing lame. guarantee you I will draw something out of it.
Okay. And
I have not failed that challenge yet.
Okay. Sure.
So,
let's be brave.
All right. So then, in the next couple of weeks, feel free to interact with either the social media or text either Lindsay or I directly for those of you who know us, or email us. And the email is badtheologyproductions343@gmail.com. Email us your recommendations. And if we get one that is truly a standout or that gets the most interaction, we'll do it. We'll read it. We will dissect it. We'll have some fun with it. And yeah, maybe ruin a favorite movie of yours.
Yep.
So.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
All
and
right.
Darth Vader next week.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So Darth Vader next week, and then we'll talk about Leviathan, and yeah. I think this is going to be a fun summer.
I think so, too. We've got a bunch of good stuff coming up.
Oh, my goodness.
Plus the weight loss episode we wanted to talk about. Not so much fun, but interesting. It'll be a fun conversation, too, because I've been doing a lot of research.
I threw my diet out the window this weekend.
I have some good news for you. Actually, I'll recommend a book. We'll wrap up, and I'll recommend a book to you off the air.
Okay. Well, I threw it out the window for the weekend. I'm getting back on it on Monday. But all right.
Well,
good things.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who has listened this far in. We're having fun. We hope you're having fun with us. And yeah, toss out some movie and book recommendations, and let's see what we come up with to dive into next, because this is a fun part of what we're doing. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Rob.
I really liked your Falcon sketch. When I was bored, I burned it.
Chopping your legs. You don't know how hard I find these buns.
Touch my face and you'll have to call G's when there's bees on your sleeve.
Now I have to go teach the kids to drink powdered goat bladders.
But they want roast beef and you have no puppets. You gave them all to me.
Doesn't matter. I don't care what you said to the man with the black head. Where is the rubber band? You're ruining my plan.
Down the street, just go down the street.
They've got the ultimate power in the universe, and before it gets better, it's getting worse. It's not a satellite, but it can light up the sky when it blows. Oh, 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 oh. It's real, but it's not a moon. 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 Oh, look at her face. She's happy as a tribble. Get my wedding suit.
Boy, you don't got a clue.
Girl, you're crazy cute.
I'm gonna kick some grits up on your face.
Okay, alright. Do you have any bunions or lesions upon you? Let me check your feet.
Why?
I don't like parasites or children of the night. A quail and his rubber beak are beautifully unique. Bleep, bloop, blow. Goodbye to your love. They've got the ultimate power in the universe, and before it gets better, it's getting worse. It's not a satellite, but it can light up the sky when it blows. Oh, 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 oh. It's real, but it's not a moon. 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 Death of a culture. The death of a culture. Somewhere the vulture is waiting for us in an erected sun. Sun with an iron gun. Evil comes in round shapes. It's not a moon. 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 Listen to me, Greg. We already know you're a Gemini. Yeah, but did you know that I once had a huge spider bite on my neck? Greg, you could never get down like a funky thing, cause you don't live in the rhythm. This cheese is delicious, and now I've gotta put a brown thing in your face. I'm tired of you, Phil. Want you in a landfill? Someone make him stop. Put his bones in a box. why don't you have a stroke? They've got the ultimate power in the universe, and before it gets better, it's getting worse. It's not a satellite, but it can light up the sky when it blows. Oh, 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 oh. It's red. It's not alone. 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 It's red. It's not alone. 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 Never culture. Never culture. It's not alone. 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 Never culture. Never culture. It's not alone. It's not alone. It's not alone.